We are now in Desjardins chapter 8 of his Introduction to Business Ethics, and this is aspect 1. Chapter 8 is on the topic of liability in business. As we discuss liability, the old themes of autonomy and vulnerability will be key. So, an ethical business takes responsibility for the harms produced by its products. Liability refers to just that, the business's responsibility for the harms caused by its products. What are the harms for which the business is responsible in its products from a moral standpoint, right? So surely not all of the harms. For example, some harms could come from misuse by the users. So we're interested in those harms that business is properly responsible for from the moral standpoint, not the legal standpoint or any other. There are two basic concerns in thinking about that question. The first is consumer autonomy. The less autonomy and freedom a consumer has with regard to a product, the greater is the business's liability for the product and moral responsibility for not taking advantage of a consumer's limited freedom. In other words, if a consumer is forced to use a product by a firm, then the firm is that much more responsible for whatever harms the product may cause. The second concern is that of consumer vulnerability. The more vulnerable a consumer is with regard to the product, the greater is the business's liability for the product and moral responsibility for not taking advantage of a consumer's vulnerability. The more harm a product can cause, the more responsible is the producer. In other words, there would be greater responsibility for producers of cars, where the harm is potentially great, than for producers of bubblegum, where the harm is potentially much smaller. Vulnerability and autonomy seem to go hand in hand. The more vulnerable a consumer is, chances are the less autonomy they have. Well, if one can be caused great harm, then that great harm would take away from one's autonomy.